Do you see the slides?
Yeah, we are able to see your screen.
Okay, very good. So I'm Peter Eigemans. I start now. I'm working for a Dutch company, Ordina, and I work mainly for the department JS Roots, which is specialized in front-end technology, and also a bit for the GTech department, that's a Java part. But mainly I'm focused now on front-end, also in my job. I show you, start first with Vue.js, Vue version 3. Also a little, sometimes I step back to Vue 2. And I also show you how you build an app in React. And I show you what kind of app I'm going to make. Okay, I explain Vue and I explain React. And I'm building a Tesla battery range calculator, firstly, with Vue 3. And here you see the dashboard where you can see how far a battery can drive for different models of the Tesla under different circumstances. So the speed, the outside temperature, and the wheels will influence this. And also the heat and the airco. The Tesla battery service has a very simple backend. It is nothing more than a lookup table, where you see here it starts here with the model 60, and the wheel size here is 19. And on means that the airco is on, or the heat depends on the temperature, outside temperature. The speed is for 45, for example. And the outside temperature can be, for example, -10. And then you can drive a range of 242 miles. So here you see also a link. You can also make a snapshot of this screen, for example, where you can also start with a workshop how to build a Tesla battery range calculator with React or with Vue. And firstly, you have to read then the README, and there you see some exercises, and also the applications are broken in the beginning, so you have to fix also some errors, and I give you some hints. And afterwards, you can start with some exercises. Vue is component-based. Adds logic to your DOM, and this is you can easily integrate it with Angular or React. It is very small. It is 60 kilobytes big, and when you compare it with React, that is that library is a library, React, and it is approximately 100 kilobytes big. But they are both quite small in comparison with Angular. Angular is more than 500 kilobytes big now. So start up with Vue 2. How do we do this? We did it with a root Vue instance. So this is the way how we start a Vue application in the old way. And here you see also a simple example how you do this did this in Vue 2. And underneath you see a new Vue instance, and there I define also the data in the data section, my message, and the message will be rendered in the div upstairs. In Vue 3, we start our application with create app, Vue.create app. Within the brackets, the component you want to start and want to mount. You see an example how you do this in a very simple way. You see upstairs, you see a template with an ID counter. And here in the middle, you see how I define the component counter within the data section, a counter, of course. And underneath, you see that I use now a view.createApp to spin up this this component and render it. You can render. You can use interpolation to render your data in your screen. It's a very simple way. Okay, it's component-based view, of course. Adds logic to your DOM elements. You see how the application is built up, what kind of containers, what kind of components it consists of. The app container, and within the app container we have a header component, and then the the thick black box, that is the Tesla battery component. And within the Tesla battery component we have a lot of other dump components like Tesla car and Tesla stats component. And the Tesla car component here upstairs, this is the component which does the heavy lifting. This contains all the logic and all the state of your application. The UI is also, you can also recognize all those components in your UI. In the HTML, there's the same structure. You have an app component, Tesla header component, and Tesla battery component, which is the container component. Container components always are components which contains the logic, and the Tesla car component is a presentational component and is a dump component. It shows only an image or the wheels which are turning. The application itself has also the same structure, so that is quite easy to understand. You see that the main.js, that is the main entry point of the application underneath. Then the main.js calls the app view, and the app view contains the Tesla battery component. The Tesla battery component has a lot of child components, the Tesla car and Tesla climate. So here you have the same application in a component tree. Let's start with that. Main.js component calls the app view component. How is this in code? Main.js is the main entry point of the component, and we start our application with the create app from view. We spin up our app component here, which I imported here also. And I refer also here to the with the app to the ID of in the template. So this app view component will be mounted. You see also in the template that you have a header with an image logo. And also I render here a Tesla battery. And this Tesla battery is imported here in the script section. So I can render it and use it. I import also the logo I want to render. To render the logo, I have to also define it here in the data section, which contains the state of your application, the data section. What you also see here that this component has a name. Name is app. And it has a components section which contains the child components of this component, and the child component is Tesla battery, of course, which I render here in my template. And underneath we always have our styling. The Tesla battery component contains the heavy lifting, contains the state and the properties and the actions and the methods. You see that the Tesla battery has a name and also a component section and a data section for the for the state, computed section, which contains all the methods, all the functions which will be executed when a property in the data section changes. The methods contains a normal callback methods. You see the same same structure, but then the full structure of the Tesla battery with in the component section all the child components. Child components are the Tesla car, Tesla climate, and in the data section I have here the logic, the state of the application, the title of course, and all the models I have here, and in the Tesla object contains the user data with what the user has selected on the screen. And that can be the speed and the temperature. He can also manage the climate and the wheels. In the computed section, we have a models function which returns all the Tesla models and all the lookup table I showed you in the beginning. And in the stats component, that will calculate for you the how far a model can drive under the circumstances, on different circumstances. So that can be different speed, different temperature, climate. And in the method section, I define a normal callback methods to change the climate button from on to off, or vice versa. This is the output of the stats function. Stats function will return an array with how far a model can drive, how many miles. This is the lookup table I was talking about. This already I told you, the stats function, it calculates the maximum battery range, and the Tesla object contains the selected conditions. Tesla stats component, for example. Let's talk about that. How do we pass values, properties to a child component? In this example, to the Tesla stats component, we do that with vbind or a column. So we said it before, the stats array, the column you see here in the you see my mouse. The Tesla stats component, this is this red box. And how do we pass this array to the child component? Here you see, I show you the Tesla battery component, and we look here, this template of the Tesla battery component, which contains a Tesla car, and also the stats component I also call here. And I want to pass here all my stats, the stats array, and I use here the column. How do we receive data in the Tesla stats component? Okay, here you see this Tesla stats component with a name, and in the property section, we say we can receive the stats array of type array, and then we can use it here in our template. And what do I do here? I loop here loop here through these stats, and I use here the v-for directive. And I render here the model to lowercase, and I render here also the miles or to drive. And later on, I show you how I implement a filter for to change this model to lowercase. And I also make a filter to change the miles to kilometers. Components are nothing more than JavaScript functions. You pass in data, and the view will be rendered. We also have the v model for two-way data binding. Every year I use an example of the Tesla counter. I want to speed up my car, and when I need two-way data binding for this to send the old value and to return the new value with the $emit. Requirements for the vModel directive is that a component has to accept a model value property, and you have to emit back a special kind of event, a update model value event. Does it look like in the Tesla country component? First, I show you the Tesla battery component, where I call here the Tesla counter component, where I show you here the speed, where I can, in this Tesla counter component, you can, rule the speed. And here you define the vModel directive, and I pass here my speed. In the Tesla counter component, I can, in the properties section in the Tesla counter component, I can receive the model value of type number, because we are talking about speed, so it is a number. In the method section, I defined a increment method to increment the value I got in, the speed value. And when I get a new value, I emit the special event I talked about, update model value event. And I do a step extra. And when will this increment method where will this increment method execute it? It will be executed here via a onClick event here in the template of the Tesla counter component. So here is this the way how you define a onClick event in Vue. And this is all about Vue 3, of course. I'll show you also a little bit about the composition API of Vue 3. What and why. The composition API is for organizing your component logic, and also to share and reuse logic, and also you can also test it easily, your code. So that's a good point. In Vue 2 it was not possible, quite difficult with mix-ins. How do you how do you implement such a composition API? You have to create a new JavaScript file with some logic you want to reuse in a lot of components. I show you an example, and when you create this JavaScript file, we call this a composable, and you can import this composable into components, and you can use this composable in your setup function. This is all new in Vue 3. This is the Tesla. I show you an example of the old Tesla stats components I showed you already. And I want to make a filter with a composable to make this model lowercase. So not in this way, but I make a special composable for this. And I also make a filter for changing the miles to kilometers. How do I do that? I create first a JavaScript file that is a composable, we call this, and then I define the various quite simple functions. A kilometer function which receives the miles in our example, and I translate it to kilometers, and a lowercase function which returns a lowercase value when it is a string. And here you see in the template how I use this filters lowercase, filters to kilometers. But first, when you want to use this, you have to import the filter.js file, of dit is the filter JavaScript file. Import it here in the script section. And I also define a setup function where I return the filters. And this is the point where I can start using it in the template, all those filters. So this is an example how you can reuse this filter in all components. And this is, yeah, the advantage of the composition API I was talking about. React, how do we build such an application in React? Let's first start with the syntax of a component. How do the component looks like? Here here I render a welcome component, and this will render nothing. But a component in React extends always from react.component. And you have to implement a render method. You see the same, but a little bit bigger. What does the render method here return? It will return some kind of HTML. It looks like HTML. It's a hello message, I think. And it is also, you see here between curly brackets, some JavaScript, this property name. And the combination of HTML in combination with JavaScript, we call it here JSX style. You can combine HTML with JavaScript quite easily then. And what does this props name contain? In this example, it will contain the name Sarah, which I define in my HTML. So with this props, we can get the name, and we can render it. This is also the same as with Vue. Components are like JavaScript functions. There are two types of state in Vue in React. This props for get input properties from the parent component, and also the this state for the local state within your component. This is a very simple example of a React application. To spin this up, I've defined here a div element with an ID root. And here upstairs, I spin up an application with a React DOM.render. And I attach here a app component, which I define here further upstairs. And I render it in the root, in the root ID, in the div element. The app component, you see here upstairs, extends the React component, of course, and it will render in the render section. So you see that I return three welcome messages, which I explained already. So this is a very simple way how you how a React app looks like. This props never change the props. This is only the responsibility of a parent. That's a good thing to remember. Here's our application again, but then working in React. The UI has the same structure as you recognize it, I hope. Upstairs you have the main entry point component, the app. Then you have the header component, and then the Tesla battery component, and all the child components. The structure of the application is quite the same we've seen before with Vue. We have as .js as extension, and with Vue we have the .vue as extension. You see downstairs that we have one file that's called index.js. That's our starting part of our application. And that will call the app.js component. You see a components tree, the same story, index.js, calls the app.js, and here I want to show you how the app.js also calls the header, uses the header component. Here you have the app.js component. I want to render a header. How do I do that? I import the header from components header, and I define a, now you know it, a class with the name app. And what I have to say about is that every React component has always start with a capital letter, and it extends the React component, and it has a render function, and that render function returns the header, of course. Now, does the header looks like? So when the header looks like, looks in code, it looks like this. It's not a normal component, it's a functional component. So let's start with the imports. Import here React, and I import here also the CSS and the logo, and I define here with a array function my header component. It's a functional component because we use here a function to define our components. We use this functional components mainly when our component is stateless. In the header component, we render our logo, of course, and downstairs we export our header component so we can use it in other components. We use the components tree again with the Tesla battery. Tesla battery does the heavy lifting, you know. It contains the state and the actions. And how does the Tesla battery looks like in React? It extends the React component. This class has a constructor, and within the constructor we call always the super. And with super we can use the React component, of course. And in the constructor we also define our state. In this example, the car stats as an array. And also we define here the config with default values of 55 and temperature 20. We have here a render method, which, with destructuring, we cut here the config from the state, but we do nothing with it now. I only render here in my return the Tesla car. The state of the app, the car stats contains the complexity. Okay, and the config app contains the current selected values of the user. This is what the car stats can return. This is also what you know. Tesla car component. How do we passing properties to the Tesla car component? We do this in this way. You see the yellow box in the render return. You see the Tesla car. I pass there a wheel size to the Tesla car component. I do that via the config.wheels. How do we receive the properties? Here you see that the Tesla car also is a functional component. And it will receive the wheel size via the properties, and it will be rendered. How do we change state in React? That is quite different. Do not change state like in Vue. So like this, as this state is new state, but use the this set state function. This is the only way that you can re-render your template. So you have to use set state, or the new way, you can also use React hooks for this. I shall also show you that. But first, we start with changing the state with set state, the blue one, this set state. You see a little example of a welcome stateful component, also a constructor with and a super, so we can use all the logic from the React component, which we extend. We define here our state variable and message my friend. And in the render section, we render it, and it will render hello, my friend. And we want to change this message. How do we do that? First, I added here in the middle a update message function. And this update message function uses the thisSetState function to change the message. Quite simple, but this is the only way to re-render your your component, and that you see also the new text. In the render section, I define here a header, hello, this state message. And in the beginning, it will only render the my friend message, this hello, my friend message. I have also defined here a button with an onClick event. And when I click on it, when it will be fired, the update message function will be fired. And so the setState function will also change my message, and it will be rendered. You see also something strange here in the constructor that I defined here, this update message bind this. So we can, we bind this, we say here that we can use the this keyword also in this function. Okay, it's a result. How do we recalculate the stats when the wheel size changes, for example? Here you see the Tesla battery component also with a constructor, and I also define the state, you know that all. And I define here in the middle a handle change wheels callback method, which receives the size of the wheels. And also with the this set state, I try here to change the wheel size, and also to trigger a callback method, the stats update method, which will recalculate your stats. And I pass this callback method here in the Tesla wheels component. And you can imagine that the Tesla wheels component will handle this change wheels, will call this callback method when the wheels are changing. We also have component life cycles in React, like in Vue, mounting, unmounting, updating. It's all about hooks. We can also use hooks for this. We're talking here about, first I go to hooks to explain this. Here you have the React hooks. What are React hooks? They are like a little bit the same like the composition API in Vue 3. Hooks are functions that let you hook into a React state and lifecycle features. Why do we use React hooks? Hooks let you split your component into smaller functions, and it's easier to test, and you can easier share, reuse your stateful logic. So it's the same as with the composition API with Vue 3. You see an example in the Tesla battery component. I define here a class, Tesla battery, and a construct in the constructor. I define also the state. And you see, this is the old situation. I define the state the old way with this.state. And you have here all those default values. How do we do this with React hooks? Firstly, we have to change our class component to a functional component. So we make a function of our Tesla battery component. And we also define here, make use of the use state of React. There's a different way of defining our state in our component, but this is also the beginning of how we can reuse our state. Here, the use state also, you see that it returns two variables, the car stats in this example, and the set stats, and the config and the set config. Car stats contains the state, the current state of the car stats, and the config also. And the set car stats and the set config are the methods to change the current state. First, we have to then replace. First, it's the second step. Sorry, we have to replace this set state in our application to make this all work. In our Tesla battery class component of normal component, all component, we use this set state to change the car stats. And the car stats calls the calculate stats callback method. How do we replace this now with the React hooks? It will look like this. Here you see we make a function of the component. Here I define upstairs with use state. I define here the car stats property and the set car stats function to update the current state of the car stats. And here I define here a stats update function. It's an array function. And I use here the set car stats. That is the new way of updating my state. I don't use, the old way was I have to use the set state. And the new way is to use the set car stats, which is defined here via the use state React hook, we call this. It is not, you can still use the set state in your applications. It's not mandatory to switch over to the React hooks. It is up to you. Okay, I've also written, I don't know if you see my screen switching. Okay, I've also written on DZone an article how to convert all this Tesla battery component to a functional component. It's a long story, but it is not very difficult. I explain a little bit the same application where I spoke now. I explain also what is a hook in this article, and I show you the steps how to convert. You have to change your class to a function, and etc. etc. You have to okay, this is okay. Convert all methods to functions. And okay, what I'm talking about already. Use the use state hook. I don't know if you see all the code now, but I switch now to the application. You see the application. Here, this Tesla battery component. It's quite big, you see. And it also here I define here my a state component. The use stats, and I want to reuse. When I want to reuse all this, all my logic I explained you already, I define here a JavaScript function, use state hooks, a JavaScript function, for example, which contains all my state, and I return also my state. I export it so I can reuse it in other components, these stats objects. So it's a little bit the same story as with the composition API. The comparison about React and Vue. React is backed by Facebook, you know, and it is yeah, a lot of users, a lot of developers who are working with it. Vue is also very popular, you know already, but it's not driven by a big player. React Native, with React, you can also making apps with React Native, and with Vue, you have nowadays, yeah, what I know is you have Vue Native to make apps, and you can also make apps with native scripts. It's a very interesting one, native script to use. I like that framework to make apps. React is less opinionated. It uses plain JavaScript. And Vue, make use of directives and routings. React is 100 kilobytes big for and Vue is 60 kilobytes big. Vue is easier to learn. Vue is less code than React. React, you have to code a lot. I showed you. And for your React, there are still more developers available now. And the documentation, what can I say about that? The documentation about React is not so good as for Vue. And what my experience is that you can, when you have a very user application, it's, I think, better to choose for React, but okay, I don't know what you will say about it. You see also, I want to show you the Tesla battery component in my project. You see that it is how many lines of code? 143 lines. And when I go to the Vue app, Tesla battery components, sorry, is okay, 67 lines. So it's very small, less code, what I say, that's good. Similarities, both use the virtual DOM. Both have the same performance, they say, and it is component-based. I have here a lot of links about my articles at DZone. You can find me under the name Eigermans, Peter Eigermans. You can also find me on Twitter, of course. I've written also some workshops also in DZone. And you can also download my workshop from GitHub. Are there still any questions?
Yeah, feel free to get your questions to Peter, and I think Peter will try to get them answered.
No problem. You can also, you can also share it with on Twitter or a question or DZone or LinkedIn, or you can find me everywhere.
Sure. So when you started building this application, right? So what are your primary observations between using like the syntax of previous Vue 2 and now using with Vue 3 the compositional APIs. So what is your experience between those two?
Yeah, this is very good because you can Vue 2 you cannot share, for example, this. I don't know if you see my code. Do you see only my slides, or do you also?
No, we are able to see your code. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, you see here that I have defined here a filters component, so I can reuse all these. Yeah, this is custom component, of course, custom JavaScript with custom functions, so I can reuse it quite easily, and that is very fine because I was missing that in Vue 2. So you can reuse it here, of course. Okay. That's when I'm a little bit confused now. Let's see. Nah, okay, good. It was used here in the stats component, of course. So I defined it here, import it here, and I also used here a setup function. But okay, what is that is a good part of it. I like that, and it's all it is more reactive. And that is my experience about Vue 3. And you can quite easily learn React or Vue with my workshop. I can show you all my my links again here, or make a snapshot of the screen. You can also do that.
Great. Any other questions we have?
It's funny that that React has the same solution with reactive hooks.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see when I compare here these two, this is the Tesla battery old style and with the Tesla battery with hooks. Let's see if I can compare it here. Okay, yeah. You see that I define here also a like the filters in Vue 3. I make a separate JavaScript file which handles the state. In the old situation, I this is kijken, what is old, what is new. Seems sometimes difficult to see. Okay, you see still the component, but it is that it's the state is still here in this function, in this functional component. And I place it here in the useState hooks JavaScript, and that is here. So I can reuse this. I export it here, so I can reuse all those states around in my application if you like that, if you need it. Okay.
Right.
I see that I'm now over time now, so.
No, we have time, Peter. So are there any more questions we have for Peter? Going once, going twice.
I've also here.
Yeah, I think we have a question.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't have much a question, but I wanted to let you know, like, I'm a little bit new to both, and so I was kind of using this to evaluate which should I learn first. And I really appreciate your overview. It was very informative, so thank you.
Okay. First, yeah, that's quite difficult to say. This is also a Vue meetup, so, but yeah, for me, both are fine. When you look at the state of JavaScript survey, we see that React is the most popular framework now, and second will be Vue, for example. But React, yeah. Let's try React first, because React is based on JavaScript 100%, and then you learn a lot of JavaScript. That's a good thing. And Vue is yeah, it's easy, quite easy. And when it is too difficult for you, when you have the feeling, yeah, React is too difficult, then I should start with Vue, I think, because Vue is less code. It uses a lot of directives, which solves a lot of problems. So when you are quite new, yeah, it's difficult to say where to start.
Right.
I should start with Vue.
I have a little bit more exposure to Vue, so that's where I'm gonna start. But then I think I'll give React a try after I get Vue.
Yeah, I've also written a article about how to build this. You see, on DZone, I have here a list of articles, and I've also written here a tutorial how to build a Tesla battery rate calculator with Vue. So it's also yeah, you can also begin with that.
I will look forward to going through it.
Yeah, and then you will make this application. You can speed up, and you see the wheels are turning faster, I hope. And let's go change the wheel size, and okay, and the airco, outside temperature, etc.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say like, so any of these frameworks, whether it is Vue.js, ReactJS, or Angular, so all aim towards component-based development. So
yeah,
so all has like each framework now we do with component, and from the components, each one supports their own state management. So with React, it is using hooks, and with Vue, it is also like using the new compositional APIs and all those stuff. So I think all the frameworks have same type of programming strategies. So I think I would always take which one is easier to start with and use the same learnings in the other frameworks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It is Vue is easier to start, so let's say start with Vue.
Right, because I will be biased today because it's Vue Meetup, so I will say like start with Vue, but I will absolutely leave it to the understanding which we get when we try to learn a new framework. So if we understand React quickly, go for it, and use the same learnings when you want to work with other frameworks.
Yeah, you're right. I understand you. Yeah. Okay, now thank you very much for that I can have a talk.
Yep, sure. Thank you for coming and sharing with us.
Yeah, of course.
All experiences you had while converting or developing an application for a Tesla battery range calculator, and going over the differences between Vue and React as you encountered while developing the features.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Thank you all for joining today's meetup as well. You're always welcome to share your feedback with us. If you see any topics that you want us to discuss in our upcoming meetups, you are welcome to share that with us as well.
Okay, that's very good.
Yeah. Thank you for joining.
Yeah.
Thank you for attending all.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to do that.